When my wife told me, "Don't wait up tonight," I smiled. I trusted her. I thought she was just going out with friends. But then, I said something that changed everything. I told her, "Tell Mark I said hi." And that's when she froze, like her heart stopped. That 1 second of silence told me more than any confession ever could. That night was the beginning of the end. I've been married to Emily for 6 years. We met at a bookstore, yeah, the cliché kind of love story. She was standing in the self-help section, reading The Power of Now. I made some stupid joke about procrastinating on buying self-help books, and somehow, we ended up having coffee. Emily was warm. Beautiful. The kind of woman who smiled with her whole face. She had this way of making silence feel safe. Our early days were simple. We'd watch movies, cook together, plan imaginary vacations. She'd always tease me for never using enough salt, and I'd tease her for burning toast even on level 1. I was working as a project manager at a construction firm. Long hours, tight deadlines. Emily worked part-time as a graphic designer from home. It worked. I brought stability, she brought color. For 5 years, life felt steady. Not perfect, but steady. Until one evening, something shifted, subtly, quietly, like a change in the wind. It started with her phone. She never used to lock it. Suddenly, Face ID, new password, always flipped screen down. When I asked, she said, "It's just because of work clients." I believed her. Because love makes you believe. But love also blinds you, in ways you only realize when it's too late. A month later, she started dressing differently. Not in a bad way, just new. More effort. She began wearing perfume again, the one she used when we were dating, the one she stopped using after marriage because it was too much for daily wear. And then came the girls' nights. Every Friday. Sometimes Saturday too. She'd say, "Don't wait up tonight." And I'd kiss her cheek, pretending I didn't notice the faint tremble in her voice. One night, while doing laundry, I found a receipt in her jeans pocket. A restaurant bill. For 2. A fancy steakhouse. The total, $182. I looked closer. The date. The time. It was a Friday. When she told me she was with her friend, Hannah. Something in my chest tightened, but I didn't say anything. Not yet. A week later, she came home late again. I was sitting on the couch, pretending to be asleep. She crept in barefoot, perfume strong, makeup still perfect. I heard her whisper into her phone, softly. Just one word. Good night. But it wasn't for me. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I was tired, paranoid. But deep down, I knew something was off. The woman who used to send me heart emojis now barely replied. The woman who used to laugh at my bad jokes now scrolled through her phone instead. And every time I asked how her day was, her answers got shorter. Fine. Busy. Tired. Love doesn't die in one blow. It fades, like a light that forgets it's supposed to shine. Then came the night she said it. "Don't wait up tonight." She said it so casually, like it was routine now. But something in me cracked. So I smiled calmly, naturally. And I said, "Tell Mark I said hi." Her face went pale. Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to speak but couldn't. And that silence told me everything. That night she didn't come home. She texted around midnight. "Stayed at Hannah's. See you in the morning?" But I didn't sleep. I sat there, staring at her picture on my phone, realizing the woman I loved might already belong to someone else. And I had no idea who Mark really was. Every marriage has cracks. But sometimes, those cracks hide entire secrets. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. She kissed my forehead, poured herself coffee, and asked, "Do you want eggs?" I watched her hands tremble slightly as she cracked one into the pan. I wanted to ask. I wanted to shout. But instead I said, "Sure." Because sometimes silence is louder than any accusation. She talked about random things, Hannah's new job, the neighbor's dog barking at night. Her voice sounded normal, but her eyes avoided mine. When she left for work, I finally exhaled. My mind was running in circles. Mark. Who was he? A coworker? A client? Someone from her gym? That night, I checked her phone when she showered. Locked, of course. But I noticed something new. Her wallpaper was no longer our photo from the beach. Just a blank black screen. That said enough? The next few days, I became an investigator in my own home. Every time she left, I took mental notes: outfits, perfume, how long she stayed out. It felt disgusting, but the not knowing was worse. One evening, she mentioned needing to pick up files from a client's office. So I followed her. Not close enough to be seen, just far enough to see where she went. She drove downtown, parked near a restaurant called The Haven. It wasn't an office. It was the same place on that receipt. I sat in my car, heart pounding, palms sweating. A few minutes later, she walked inside, and a man in a gray jacket stood up to hug her. She smiled. That smile, the one that used to belong to me. They sat close. Too close. She touched his arm when she laughed. He brushed her hair behind her ear. I felt something inside me break quietly. Not loud anger, not even jealousy, just this empty, sinking ache. The kind that eats you slowly from the inside. I could have stormed in. I could have confronted them right there. But I didn't. I sat in the car for an hour, watching them talk, sip wine, and laugh. I memorized every second of it. And when she left, I followed her home again. She walked in at 11 p.m., humming softly, pretending nothing happened. When she reached for me to hug goodnight, I stepped back. She looked confused. Everything okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. Just tired. She smiled faintly. I'm glad you trust me enough not to question where I go. That sentence stabbed me. Trust. She used that word like a knife wrapped in silk. Days passed. I barely ate, barely slept. At work, my mind was elsewhere. I kept replaying that dinner in my head, her laugh, his hand on hers. Every image burned deeper until I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to confront her. But not without proof. So, I installed a small voice recorder under the passenger seat of her car. It felt wrong, but betrayal changes your definition of right. 2 nights later, she said the line again. Don't wait up tonight. I nodded, my chest heavy. As soon as she drove off, I waited an hour, then retrieved the recorder. My hands shook as I pressed play. There was music, traffic, and then her voice. Hey, Mark. You look amazing tonight, he said. You always say that. She laughed. Because it's true. Then silence. Then the faint sound of lips meeting. I stopped the playback. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I just sat there in the driveway, the cold night wrapping around me like punishment. That was the confirmation I didn't want but needed. My wife was cheating on me. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I watched her destroy our marriage piece by piece, each lie, each girl's night, each fake smile. And I planned. Not revenge. Not yet. Just the truth. The next weekend, she told me she was spending the night at Hannah's again. I kissed her goodbye. As soon as she left, I drove to the same restaurant. I watched her and Mark arrive, same smiles, same routine. But this time, I took pictures. Them holding hands. Her head on his shoulder. Her wedding ring missing. I felt tears form, but not out of love anymore. Out of disbelief at how easily she erased us. When they left, I followed at a distance until they reached a small apartment complex. They went inside together. Lights turned on upstairs. I sat in my car until dawn. When she returned home the next morning, she smelled like his cologne. I couldn't even look at her. That afternoon, she noticed I was distant. You're so quiet lately, she said softly. Is everything okay? I looked up from my coffee. I should be asking you that. Her eyes flickered. What do you mean? Nothing, I said, forcing a smile. I just hope you're happy. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yeah, I am. That confirmation hurt more than any confession could. That night I made my move. Not a confrontation. Not shouting. Something different. I created a new email under a fake name and sent the photos to Mark's company address. The subject line read, "Thought you should know who your marketing head spends her nights with." Because Emily worked for Mark. He was her boss. By the next morning, chaos had erupted. She came home crying, shaking. "They fired him," she said through tears. "Someone sent pictures of us to the office." I looked at her, keeping my voice calm. "That's awful," I said. "I can't imagine who would do that." Her eyes searched mine. She must have seen something, some flicker of knowledge, but I kept my expression steady. Then she whispered, "You know, don't you?" I stayed silent. Her lips trembled. "It just happened, okay? You were always working, I felt lonely." I cut her off gently. "Don't!" She cried harder. "I never meant to hurt you." I looked at her, feeling strangely empty. "You didn't just hurt me, Emily. You buried everything we built." She packed a bag that night and left for her sister's place. No goodbye. Just silence. For days the house felt dead. Her scent still lingered on the pillow. Her mug sat on the counter, half full of cold coffee. I thought about begging her to stay. But then I remembered her laugh with him. Her hand in his. And I realized, sometimes love doesn't die because it's killed. Sometimes it dies because it's replaced. She thought the worst was over. She thought I'd just cry and move on. But she didn't know, I wasn't done yet. What came next wasn't revenge. It was justice. The next morning, the world felt different. The silence in our house wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy, like it knew what I had discovered. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with him, the laughter, the touches, the betrayal. She came home around 7, pretending everything was normal. I was sitting at the kitchen table, coffee cold in my hand. When she saw me, she froze. Her eyes searched mine for something, forgiveness maybe. "Morning," she said softly, her voice trembling. I didn't reply. I just watched her, memorizing every movement. The woman I once loved now looked like a stranger wearing my wife's face. "I didn't expect you to be up so early," she added, forcing a smile. I finally spoke. "Yeah, either did I." She tried to act casual, moving toward the fridge, avoiding my stare. I waited until she turned her back, then said quietly, "How's Mark?" The sound of his name hit her like a thunderclap. She froze, her hand hovering over the fridge handle. Slowly, she turned around, eyes wide, color draining from her face. I don't know what you mean," she stammered. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. "Don't do that. Don't lie again." Her lips trembled. Tears filled her eyes. "Ethan, please, it's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I snapped. My voice was calm, too calm. "I saw the texts. The calls. I even saw you at that motel." Her face collapsed. She covered her mouth, choking on her own breath. "Ethan." I stood up, walked toward her, and whispered, "You could have just told me. I would have walked away quietly. But you made me the fool." She broke down, crying uncontrollably. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. It just happened. I felt lonely. You were always busy, distant." I laughed bitterly. "Don't blame this on me. You chose this. You wanted excitement? A thrill? You threw away a marriage for a few cheap moments." She fell to her knees, sobbing. "Please, Ethan, I'll do anything. Don't leave me." For a moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. But betrayal kills something deep inside you, the part that forgives too easily. I knelt down beside her, looked her in the eyes, and whispered, "Don't worry. I'm not leaving. Not yet." She looked up, confused. What do you mean? I smiled faintly. You'll see. Over the next week, I played the perfect husband. I brought her coffee in bed, cooked dinner, even held her hand. She believed I was trying to fix things, that maybe I had forgiven her. But while she slept, I was working. Quietly, methodically. I changed all the passwords, bank accounts, credit cards, utilities. Everything was under my name, after all. I pulled my money out, opened new accounts, transferred ownership of the car and house to myself. She didn't notice a thing. During the day, I started meeting Mark. Not directly, but through his company. I had a friend in IT who owed me a favor. We found out that Mark was running side deals, taking company funds for consulting projects that didn't exist. I packaged everything neatly, emails, bank transfers, fake invoices, and sent it anonymously to his boss. 3 days later, Mark was fired. His name ruined. His reputation shredded. Claire didn't know yet. She was too busy trying to reconnect with me. Then on Friday night I told her I had a surprise dinner planned. She lit up like a child, dressing carefully, smiling in the mirror. She even wore the perfume I used to love, the one that now smelled like lies. We drove to the city, to a fancy restaurant with glass walls and soft jazz playing inside. She held my hand across the table, whispering, "Thank you for giving us another chance." I smiled. "Of course. You deserve it." Halfway through dinner, I excused myself and walked outside. I took out my phone, opened the email I drafted, and hit send. Within minutes, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. I watched from the window as confusion turned to horror. Her face went pale. "What's wrong?" I asked, stepping back and casually. Her voice trembled. "Ethan. Mark, he was fired. There's an investigation. They say someone sent files about him." I tilted my head, pretending to think. "Huh. Maybe karma finally clocked in." She stared at me, realization dawning slowly, painfully. You did this." I didn't answer. I just took a sip of wine. She stood up, shaking. "How could you? You ruined his life." I met her gaze calmly. "He ruined mine first." She started crying again, loud enough to turn heads. I leaned closer, my voice low. "And don't worry, Claire. I didn't forget about you." Her eyes widened. I slid an envelope across the table. Inside were printed photos, her and Mark, in that motel room. Screenshots of texts. Dates, times, receipts. Her hands trembled as she flipped through them. "Ethan, please don't." I smiled softly. "Already sent copies to your parents. And to your company's HR email." She gasped, clutching the papers like they could stop the damage. "Why would you do this to me?" I stood up, adjusted my jacket, and whispered, "Because you taught me how to lie." Then I left her there, crying, shaking, broken, in the middle of that perfect restaurant with everyone watching. A week later, the divorce papers were signed. I didn't ask for alimony or compensation. I didn't need it. She moved out quietly. Mark disappeared from town. The neighborhood gossip spread like wildfire. I stayed in the house, our house, because I earned it, and because memories can haunt you if you own them. Sometimes, late at night, I sit on the porch with a drink in my hand, listening to the crickets. Do I miss her? Maybe the version of her I thought existed. But not the woman who looked me in the eye and lied. And when people ask why I seem calm after everything, I tell them the truth. Because peace doesn't come from forgiveness. It comes from knowing you didn't let the wrong person win.